Before I jump into the video, I would like to know from you guys and drop a comment below to see if the gap between providing value to your customer and actually charging more has increased. So what I mean by that is if a business owner increases the prices, have you received that much more value? Things, I don't know what these are. I don't know what you call them in English. So I had like these big thorns in my foot because I did wear sandals, but I kind of stepped on the rock, stepped over, broke my sandal, my Adidas sandal, and I had these in my foot. And so now you're wondering, why would I tell you this? Well, it's really interesting to see because, we're talking about value proposition. I've had to go to the hospital, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm going to be screwed. So thinking about the hospital, I was like, okay, so I went after hours. So it was like 7 o'clock. And I'm going to have a picture right here. It's not bad. You can't see anything. But he basically surgically, went with needles and kind of pulled these out. And these are the thorns that he took out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to cost me so much money. If you know anything about the US healthcare system, it costs a shit ton of money. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went to a doctor and they basically removed it. So I was like, how much is this going to cost? Because with the US, if you get into an accident, I had deviated septum surgery and they billed my insurance $60,000 and I was under anesthesia for a few hours. So I know that in the US, they overcharge on healthcare so much. In Mexico, my bill came out to, I think, $100. Um, Out of, I didn't do any insurance, and this is just what it costed from the doctor doing it, not the nurse practitioner, the actual doctor do it. And so now I'm looking at it. What does the US healthcare system do differently? Why it's so expensive? So one reason I believe is they have better equipment. They have the nicer equipment, they have the state of the art stuff. But I think that's only a small part. I think the second part is liability insurance because in the US we're so happy to sue people that it doesn't really matter what equipment you got because we're just gonna, if something goes south, and we're all humans, we have bad days, something like it, and we never wish on anybody that something goes bad during a surgery because of an error. But that means that in the US, hospitals need to have huge, huge, huge liability policies, right? And malpractice policies and all that. And those are probably not cheap. If you work in the healthcare industry and you know about those, let me know what they cost. I'm curious to know. And so when Allison's grandma was in a hospital and before she went into cardiac arrest, she said, I was talking to the nurse outside, and the nurse said, even if we believe that this would help her out, we have to follow protocols that the hospital set into place. So even if there's something wrong, the doctor needs to follow this exact protocol. So then, how much, and this is a question for everybody, how much value or how much does a doctor really know um, to help you out, or how much is he just following protocol of the doctor? Because if he deviates from the protocol, then he might be able for he might open himself up for lawsuits, right? So that's a whole nother thing. In Mexico, they saw that they had those tickers in my foot, and they started, performing the surgery. And that was a surgery because there was needles, everything involved, right? So now I'm looking at it like, okay, went to a restaurant the other day, and then we had food with Allison, went to food, and the waiter stood over over our bill and said, "Hey, are you gonna leave a tip?" And that just drives me nuts when people start demanding stuff. So when businesses increase their prices and offer less value, that's a huge no-no for me. I probably would not go there because in Mexico, for some reason, they can still do it way, way cheaper than in the US. I know the salaries aren't that expensive. I know that the building isn't that expensive, the building lot, the insurance and all that. But by how much more expensive and how much more are you getting for that bigger expense? And I haven't had that much experience with the Mexican hospitality, but I also know in Switzerland that it's way, way cheaper. And Switzerland has, I think, some pretty good healthcare. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to go on a walk. I try to walk a little bit and we talk more about the value proposition, like what businesses, what it really means for a business owner um, to provide more value, and what it means as a consumer or as an employee from business owner's perspective. So let's go on the walk. Business owner, you have all you have all of the money on the line. You have you've you signed leases that you need to be paying for. You've signed for multiple year contracts on different things. You did all these things that as a business owner you need to do, right? You've probably set up supply lines that you have minimum orders of. You sign a rental lease for a long time, for like 5 to 10 years, that you're on the hook for, and you sign it with your social security number and your credit app, and that's all you. And so it's in a market cycle. It's the interesting part is when it comes into the market cycle, when you have to decide, what am I going to do? Because during a downturn in the market, like when a recession is coming, I know you have rights to work and all that, but if you have a recession coming and there's going to be job cuts made, then it's going to be probably the people that provide the most headaches and are the least performing are going to go first. On the other hand, though, if we're in an upwards market, I need to talk about that too. You're just glad to have somebody and you can allow yourself to make more headaches. You can have more headaches. You can do a bunch more things that will get slide by because they probably can't replace you, or you can ghost a recruiter and do a whole bunch of stuff like that. But now, since we're in a downturn market and 40% of landlords might not make rent, there's issues, right? And so if they can't make rent, then all their employees can't make rent. And there's a real funny story. So I used to go to this place um, called Bark or something, Bark Groomers in Las Vegas. And they did an insane good job for grooming my dog. And it was about $55 to groom my little dog. I have a picture right here for her. So they used to do a fantastic job. And so I used to bring her there, $55. They trimmed her nails, they did everything. But now one day came to say, "Oh, we're moving." So I called the phone number, and I was like, "So where did you guys move to?" They said, "Oh, we moved to our our home, and we're doing it out of our garage now." So I had a conversation with her, and she said, the land lease of the store, she said, was $2,900. My lease was up after 10 years, and they had like an extension to extend or something, and they already exhausted that. And I don't know the lease details exactly, but they said it would jump up from like $2,900 to $5,500 a month. And she said, and that was like a year and a half or so ago. And she said, technically, I wouldn't have had any issues doing that. But she said that they've been hiring, so it was like three people. It was like the owner, his wife, and one groomer that they were friends with. And she said, we've tried to hire all these groomers, and they had such high demand. They said, "Oh, I only want to do small dogs. Oh, I only want to work Thursday afternoons. Oh, I only want to work part-time. Oh, I only want to do this." And she said, it's so hard when you can't plan and have regular schedules for these people. She said, I cannot take on more dogs to groom because if they don't show up, then it just doesn't work out, because she said then they're not going to get done. Then the customer's going to get mad. So there's those issues also. And so she said, so now cut we cut our costs a little bit. We're still offering at the same price, haven't increased prices. They said, "Oh, we just do it out of our garage. We know how many dogs we can do. We're not really taking on any more clients, only by referral." And they're probably still taking on more clients, but they said, we have enough right now. We're fully booked each day, and we're making good money. I was like, "Oh, sweet." And so I was like, "Would you ever, open up their studio again?" She said, "I would, but the people are just not reliable. And if you're a business owner, let me know how reliable your people are, because I've kind of experienced the same thing that some people are just not reliable because they never had to, because the economy is doing great. You can bounce around jobs, and there was never any issues with finding another one. But now, since the value proposition isn't there, but people had to increase prices to stay afloat, now all of a sudden there's a question: do I actually need this, and is it valuable enough? So now you either need to have long-lasting customers that love your value and that love the price point, and don't matter if they're going to spend it or not. But new customers are going to be like, hey, what's the price and whatnot, and so you might want to increase it for them because you need to make more money, right? Like everything went up. So it's interesting to see how when businesses increase the price but not increase the value proposition, then there's issues. And just blaming it on, oh, it's inflation, at one point isn't going to be enough, because just because it's inflation doesn't mean that you can stay in business. Because if you're going to go out of business because you didn't provide enough service, your product wasn't very liked, and your employees didn't care about the product, you can't say, oh, my business I went out of business because of inflation. That's not right. No, you had one of these three pillars that were not right. So we're living in very, very interesting times. And I keep telling myself, these people that do own that, and I've seen pushback with McDonald's, I've seen pushback on grocery stores, I've seen pushback on a whole bunch of different industries where prices like, we can't pay that. And it's always great until the credit cards run out, for American at least. For Europeans, I don't think credit card is that big of an issue, but in the United States, as long as you got credit cards, you're pretty much good to go, because it doesn't matter you're broke, you still can put it on a credit card. And it's just the delta between value and service just isn't there. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to make it out of this, who's going to come out on top. And I've seen McDonald's also, their core customers, because you can get a cheap meal from McDonald's. You could always get like $1 meal or something. That's not there no more. So they alienated their core customers, because a Big Mac now costs like $8 or $9. And if you want a meal, it's like $20. And those are almost Swiss prices. And Switzerland's always had these prices for McDonald's. But in McDonald's in Switzerland, the value proposition was always, oh, it's locally grown, locally sourced. And so we're kind of okay with that. As Swiss people, we're willing to pay more if the marketing's spot on, and they say, hey, we're using local farmers, we're using local stuff. And then it's like, okay, I can do that. And so then I think when I grew up, two Big Mac meals were like, two small ones were like $19 with a coupon. I don't know what they are now, but I'll point it right here. I'll look it up when I get back. But it is tremendous. It's how everything went up. I think at Taco Bell, me and Ali went the other day, and it was so expensive. I think Taco Bell for two people was like almost $24, 2 meals and like a drink and everything. So let me know what you guys think, if I'm wrong. And yeah, let me know. And I will see you in the next one.